Now, systems with leaks must be leak tested and leak repaired whenever possible. Whenever possible, the use of electronic or ultrasonic tester will locate a general area of the leak. So we know that this has a leak. Okay, this unit, we add refrigerant to it. That's how we know that it has a leak, because we had to add refrigerant to it. So the first thing that I would do would be to go in and look for a little bit of oil. Look at the joints. See if the joints have oil on them. If there's oil residue, then most likely that's where your leak is. At times, you're going to have to use an electronic or an ultrasonic tester. Now, they're going to show you the general area of the leak. They're going to say, okay, the leak should be here. But if you want to pinpoint the location, then you always want to use soap bubbles. Soap bubbles, to me, they're the best, because you add the bubbles in there and they show you exactly where the leak is, and they will show you regardless of the type of refrigerant that you have. Now, you have to leak check a unit which has lost a complete charge, and the use of nitrogen will cause a leak damage to the environment, will cause no leak damage to the environment. So when we lose the charge from the entire system, what we have to do is, the first thing we do is we put nitrogen in there. Nitrogen is what they call an inert gas. So we pressurize it. When you find the leak, again, if you're using soap bubbles, you can pinpoint the location, and then you can repair the leak. This nitrogen that you put in there, you can just release it to the atmosphere, because nitrogen is not going to do any harm to the atmosphere. Now, the system may be leaking if a system will not hold a vacuum after it has been evacuated. After it has been evacuated. So in other words, we repair the leak, we pull a vacuum, and we pull the vacuum down to 500 microns. The pressure keeps going up, keeps going up, keeps going up. Well, that tells me that I have a leak in the system. Now, pressurized nitrogen gas should be used to leak check systems designed to use 410A. Now, if you have a 410A system or R22 system or whatever system you have, you pressurize it with nitrogen, then you can find a leak. But why would you do this? Well, let's say your compressor, let's say the system does not have a leak. If your system does not have a leak and you're going to do what they call a major repair to the system, then after you've done the repair, then you can pressurize it with nitrogen to see if you have any leaks. What is a major repair? A major repair is when you remove the compressor, the condenser, the evaporator, or an auxiliary heat exchanger. That's what's considered a major repair. But we said earlier that we could use an electronic leak detector. If we use an electronic leak detector, it is not going to pick up nitrogen. So you have to do what they call use a trace refrigerant. So if the system uses 410A, you pressurize it with nitrogen, then you're going to have to put a trace of 410A in there with a nitrogen, just a small amount, so that the leak detector can find it. Okay, then it's okay to release that into the atmosphere because it is just a very, very small amount. But you do this only to find the leak. Again, if you have a system that uses 407C, or a system that uses 410A, or a system that uses 134A, you pressurize it with nitrogen, and you can put a trace amount of refrigerant of whichever refrigerant it is that the system uses. Now, along with leak testing, let's talk about comfort cooling with a charge of 50 pounds or more of refrigerant. Okay, you must have a leak inspection once per calendar year until the owner or operator can demonstrate through the leak rate calculation that the leak rate has not exceeded 10% for 1 year. So in other words, if you have a system that you had to add refrigerant to it, You fix the leak, you repair the leak, and you have to come back at least once a year to prove that it does not have a leak. You have to leak test the entire system. Now, this is for systems that have 50 pounds or more of refrigerant.